right. Hi, everybody. Me and Demi here. We don't do enough of these together anymore, I feel, because I feel like it's been forever since it's been me and you.
It has.
Well, anyway, we are doing book club of Anti-Diet by Christy Harrison. I took off my pretty cover, but it's chapter 10, which is health at every size and body liberation, which just like is everything I love about what we do and like the anti-diet movement. And I think like, I'm hopeful that if you read it and you're like digging it, I think it is a really therapeutic part of the process. I think it helps to redirect like and empower like people, like instead of being angry like at yourself and your body, which is what you've been conditioned to do, like redirecting it where it belongs, which is on a culture that is very oppressive toward people in larger bodies. So Demi, any initial thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just even as you're saying that, I like the visual of that, I guess, like, right, it's like we are redirecting that anger toward, and not necessarily anger, but just, yeah, it could be frustration, anger, like that we blame maybe that we have put on our body, and like this idea that we're doing something wrong and we're broken and we're messed up, and kind of going like, no, this is not about you and your body. This is about, again, a culture that has promoted something that is not evidence-based and is so harmful and is, again, creating just so much issues for ourselves personally, but then just in, again, our world and our culture. So I really like the way you said that. That's a really good way to explain it.
Well, and I feel like that those feelings have to go somewhere. And
yeah.
we're not the therapist, so maybe there's like other ways of dealing with that. But I feel for me and for I think a lot of people that we work with, like there are a lot of feelings here. There's frustration, there's anger, there's sadness, there's like shame, there's all of this stuff, and there's a reason it's there, but it's in the wrong place. Like you like deserve to be angry, but it's not at yourself. Like the anger should be at a culture that made you think that there was something wrong with you and your body, because there isn't.
Wow.
And I also think, I do think, and I think something we can talk about today is like, I also think depending on where you are in your process of recovery, that this could also be a really frustrating chapter. Because this idea that, and not that she hasn't said it before, but this idea that like, you cannot change, you can't just decide you're going to change your body. Like this, having this idea that you can just control that is something you've been lied to about for a really long time. And it is like frustrating, and it's really hard to let go of, especially when you've poured 20, 40 years into trying to make that work for you. And it's really hard to let go of something that you've like, it's like a bad relationship where you're like, well, I'm just going to stick around a little bit longer. I've already put in this much time, and maybe they'll change. It's kind of like that. It was not going to happen. And I think we all know that when you get out of that relationship. At least that has been my experience. So I think it can be frustrating, and I know like I have a vision of a couple of people in mind and where they've been at different parts of their recovery, whether they're there now or they've worked through it, of this like, but I want to change my body, but I want to lose weight, but I don't feel comfortable. Or even if there's like healthy minded reasons that they want to change their body size, like pressure on joints or whatever else there might be going on, or like it's uncomfortable when my like thighs rub together, and like getting feedback that isn't comfortable, and especially if they've had the experience of having lost weight in the past. Like I did a diet and I did lose weight, and being able, okay, going back and like, okay, but that wasn't the only thing that was going on, most likely. And you're here where you are now for a reason, because it didn't work long term. And so it's a frustrating piece. And so if you find yourself reading it and being mad or frustrated, like I think that's kind of part of the process, and then starting to kind of look at it in a different way. So whatever your feelings kind of reading through this, it's valid. If you're empowered, it's valid. If you're mad or frustrated or want to argue with it, it's valid. So wherever you are in your process, that's okay. But let's talk about what she has to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you were saying that too, and we can kind of come back to this, but just even bringing up like Cause yes, I think that's very true. Like if this is the first time you're hearing that, that's going to be like aggravating, and there's probably like denial or pushback, and that's again, totally normal. But a piece that again, I remember her talking about was, again, it's being health. We're making health so much broader, right, than just weight, which we simplify, and we just always go like, oh, you have this wrong with you, you should lose weight, you should lose weight. But it's saying, no, like health is so much more. And even for, again, that individual who, like you were saying, who has like legitimate things that they want to change, it's like reframing that and going like, okay, outside of weight, what are things? And so she talks specifically about physical activity. And she's like, some people, want strength or stamina, they want more energy, they want to like whatever. And separating that completely from your body changing and going, yeah, I can work towards these things if they're, again, things I desire once I've broken free from, again, that weight piece of it. And I can look at other measures of, achieving that versus, again, having to change my body size in order to get there, if that makes sense. So yeah, I want to walk up the stairs and, feel good doing that, or not, again, have more range of motion or things like that. Those are okay things to want and to work towards. It's just not helpful when, again, we're attaching all of that to weight and saying the only way I can have these other things is if I lose weight, with that. So.
Right. And with a lot of those things, it's just one more example of people who put their life on hold, like like chasing their dream job or finding a healthy relationship or whatever. Like this is one more example of putting your life on hold and being like, I need to lose weight and then I can.
Yes.
Like so many people who are like, well, I want to do cardio and I want to lose weight. That's not, which no one can go there today, but yeah. Then I'll lift weights and get toned or whatever, it's like, you're putting all these things on hold. Like, what if you just worked toward the things that you can actually do something about today? Right. And again, like your body may or may not change as a result, but intentionally just trying to manipulate the size of your body is not going to work. It just is probably not, unless you are in the 5%. And even then that's pretty questionable. Right. So yeah, like I think, untying health and weight, and they're talked about as if they are the same thing, like being like normal weight by the BMI is being healthy. And that's just not true. It's like, it's research-based, not true. There are a lot of people in that normal BMI like category who are not metabolically healthy, who have hypertension or high blood pressure or blood sugar issues or whatever else going on. And then there are plenty of people who are in other non-normal BMI classes who are metabolically healthy, who can walk up a flight of stairs and breathe just fine, or maybe they don't, but they're hypertension. They don't have hypertension. They don't have high blood pressure. They don't have diabetes. They don't have any. I remember having this conversation with someone once, and she was like, "Well, I just want to be healthy." I'm like, "Well, I've seen your labs. Like, what's not healthy?" And she came up with nothing. Yeah. And so people are told there's something wrong with them over and over and over. You just need to lose weight. You just need to lose weight. And you don't need to lose weight. You don't have to lose weight to be healthy. And you can't lose weight healthfully, really, like intentionally. Right. And that's the problem.
Yeah. And we would even argue, right, that the pursuit of weight loss itself is not healthy, right? That is not health promoting. That's not good for so many reasons. We've talked about like weight cycling, how that can be damaging, or again, just the emotional and physical stress you put on your body when you're going between those behaviors. That's also not, again, healthy. So it's, really redefining that and what that means, and not just what we're told it means, but for what it means for each individual. And you get to, because she kind of talks about that in the beginning too, you get to pick what that is, like what is health to you. You don't have to, there's not like a blueprint that everyone has to follow. There can be certain things that I value that someone else doesn't, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's no standard or pressure that needs to be, placed on us.
And I really like, and I think Christy Harrison, and I'm sure there are other people have said it, but she was definitely the first person who I heard say, you are not morally obligated to pursue health. Mm-hmm. Like it gets wrapped up in morals, and I can see how, like, when you have like a family member or like, it hurts. It can be hurtful for someone to watch someone else like not be healthy for a million reasons. But like at the end of the day, it's not it is not your moral obligation as a human being. It doesn't make you a good or bad person to even pursue health. But let's say that you do, let's say this is something that you care about and that you want to pursue. Okay, well, the challenge is like dieting isn't healthy.
Right.
And losing weight doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be more healthy. And this is a huge problem because that is a lot of times, especially for people in larger bodies, the only thing that is prescribed.
Yeah.
So we can talk about, I want to come back to that a little bit because I think we're going to show you guys some resources that you can use when dealing with healthcare providers who, oh, cool.
Sorry. Are we going to go?
That's fine. We can do this. We can do this.
So yeah, she talks about, again, health at every size. And this is a fact sheet that they used to have on their website that compiles some of this information. And so you guys, again, maybe have heard us talk about this or, in the past. But we'll also show you their website. And there's, again, a lot of resources just in here where you don't have to, again, do necessarily that research on your own, because that can be a lot, but a lot of this is, again, like linked to, this is all evidence-based. This isn't just like random things that people made up. But I think like the important, again, piece is like, this is their, this is kind of like their philosophy and their perspective that they're promoting. And this is kind of the evidence below that, again, is some supporting that. And so like we were just saying, right? So recognizing that health and well-being are multidimensional and that they include physical, social, spiritual, occupational, emotional, and intellectual aspects, right? So that's what we're saying. We're broadening health. We're not just saying weight and even just nutrition or, again, health from like a physical. Yeah. It's just saying like, no, someone could be physically healthy and have, poor emotional health or have poor relational health. And so it's looking at health, again, as a whole and what's promoting that as a whole. And so it's accepting and respecting, again, diverse body shapes and sizes, because we understand that that's natural and normal and how our world should be, and that we shouldn't have people fit into, again, certain boxes that are random and, again, not based on evidence. Promoting all aspects of health and well-being for people of all sizes. So people, just because they're in different, again, sized bodies, shouldn't have different experiences with doctors, right? They should still get the same, treatment and care. And it shouldn't be, again, kind of, what word am I looking for? Like everything shouldn't be shrink down to, again, just weight and size. Promoting eating in a manner which balances individual nutritional needs, hunger, satiety, appetite, and pleasure. So the other aspects, again, of food, we always want to talk about like nourishment and health around food, but there's also various other reasons we eat. There's, again, pleasure and enjoyment and just the relational aspect of food, comfort, memories, novelty. Like there's so many other, again, associations and reasons for food intake. And then promoting individually appropriate, enjoyable, life-enhancing physical activity rather than exercise for the weight or for the focus of weight loss. And so she talks about that at the end too. Like we said, like stamina and strength and that kind of stuff you can value, and that's fine. But when we're engaging in activity that's trying to manipulate our weight and size, it's not motivating, it's not enjoyable. And again, it's not promoting health. Like it's not a healthy behavior if it's something that is done out of self-hatred or trying to change yourself. And so really getting back to the basics of even that, of just moving for pleasure and enjoyment because we, again, have that ability and not because we have to do it in a certain structured way.
Right. And keep this up for a second, because there's a couple things I wanted to say. One, just to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, is I personally struggle with the like move for enjoyment. Like, I really prefer to sit on my couch and watch Netflix. Like, like I enjoyed playing sports growing up, but I'm not like, what I want to do? I really, really want to go for just a jog and like get into the environment and be so present. Like I wish I did, because I do sometimes like that when I do it. But this does not bring me this like joy automatically. And I think that's true for a lot of people. And I eventually just stopped lying to myself about it. I'm like, okay, well, if I'm moving, I don't want to move if the point is to try to lose weight or change my body in some way that is rooted in something I don't like about myself. Moving can be like, I know that my body is meant to move. I know I feel better when I do it. This is something I struggled with for a while when I first got into intuitive eating, because it's like joyful movement. It's like, I'm not a child. I don't play hopscotch anymore. I don't play sports really. And like, there are some ways I can enjoy movement for sure, but this doesn't come very naturally to me. I don't like enjoy going to the gym at the end of the day. And so it's okay to not just necessarily be like, I need to enjoy every moment of movement. She touches on this as well. It's like, but the primary goal or motivator should not be, I hate myself and I want to change myself to fit some socioeconomic expectation of what my body is supposed to look like. And so just to kind of piggyback on that, because that's a gripe I had with intuitive eating for a while as I kind of went through my own process of learning about it. The other thing I wanted to point out is health at every size gets such a bad rap it's partially in the name. Potentially they could have named it something different. But nowhere in this, because these are the five like kind of principles of health at every size. Nowhere does it say that you are healthy regardless of your body size. And this is something I think that is misunderstood by a lot of people. Like, that is not what health at every size means. That's not what the movement is about. It means that I can't look at someone based on their weight and know whether or not they are healthy. It means that they deserve like equal treatment regardless of body size, and compassion and understanding and evidence-based care. It means that like they are more than their body. It means that like all these other things. And so it doesn't mean like everyone is healthy regardless of body size. Not everyone's healthy. Like metabolically, they're just not. Like but it also, I don't know that looking at someone necessarily. Like larger bodies do not imply metabolic like health issues, and normal bodies don't imply that you are healthy. And so that's kind of what this means. And so I just wanted to clarify that as not what it is.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I do think people fear this idea of like, well, if I let go of control, like I won't be healthy. And again, like I will let everything go and I won't care about anything. And it's like, no, that's not, again, the goal. It's just saying, like you're saying, you can look at an individual who, from the outside could go, oh, they must be healthy, right? And they could have all kinds of other, again, physical ailments or emotional, or again, relate, like all those other aspects, again, of health that we're talking about. Like we cannot judge that from the outside. And again, whether they are healthy or not, there's still, again, equal access to all of the things too that they deserve. So yeah, I'm really glad you said that. That's a good point.
And then the other thing, so if you could pull up, or we can talk about it a little bit first. So she also talks about basically in the medical world, like we all are the consumer. And so essentially, and this isn't like the customer's always right, that's not what I'm saying, but like you get to drive like what you are consuming. And so if someone is offering you a product that you are not interested in, do not want, does not work, then it is okay to say that. It is okay to say, I'm not interested in what you have to offer. What else is there available? So if someone says, like, for example, there's a million ways to go about this. If you are with a doctor and they say like, okay, I just think you need to lose some weight, you can say, okay, I'm not interested in that. Thank you. What other options are available to me for me to be healthy? Because we're a far away from doctors not doing that. And you also don't have to accept it. You don't have to accept it from that provider, or you can just find another provider altogether. This is a really cool resource that I give to some of my clients that Demi gave to me. Thank you. To basically advocate for yourself in a way that doesn't require being as assertive necessarily, because that's really hard. It's hard for me to be assertive in a doctor's office. And I work in like this industry. So being able to kind of give something to, whether it's the receptionist or the nurse that you first see, or, bring multiple copies if you need to, of essentially saying like, I will not be talking about my weight. I am not interested in your advice or recommendations around changing my body size.
Yep. Yeah, I love that. And this again gives you guys, so we want to again communicate, you do have the option and choice to communicate that to your healthcare provider. You do not have to be, subjected to that information. And there may again be some steps that you need to take again to kind of protect yourself, knowing that there may be doctors, right, who are just going to say whatever, do whatever, recommend whatever. And so, one, choosing, I'm not going to see that provider anymore, or knowing that there's another option, communicating that. And this is, like you said, much easier than like maybe having the hard conversation. It's like, please respect what, I've laid out here. And this gives resources, and again, the why. And, like we said, like you have this option to do that if you are wanting.
Right. Right. And it says, I mean, if you go to the very top, I like just kind of that first part. It's like, per the American Medical Association Medical Code of Ethics regarding patient rights, patients have the right to make decisions about the care the physician recommends and to have those decisions be respected. Like, this is your life and this is your body. And like, yes, someone can have expertise. And at the end of the day, you have free will and the right to make your own choices. A doctor, a dietitian, a therapist, whoever's job is to help you accomplish what you want to accomplish, based on their training and education.
Yeah.
And so, and I kind of, as what was coming up for me as I was like reading this and reading in, the anti-diet book, it was kind of like, and you can just find another doctor. The thing that came up for me, and Demi, I'm just going to kind of like see your thoughts on this, is I also know people who will shop around for someone to tell them what they want to hear. And this isn't the same thing.
Yeah.
Because if someone comes to me and they say, I want to lose weight, I want you to put me on a diet, I'm going to say, hey, let's talk about why. Like, I'm not going to just like dismiss what they're saying, but ultimately we're going to get to the space where I say, here's all the reasons that I ethically like can't do that. And I like, there's probably all these other things that I think would be really great for us to work on together. But like, this is like my kind of ethical boundary and like evidence-based belief around like food, nutrition, and bodies. And so there have been plenty of people who say, well, no, thank you. That is not what I'm interested in. And you do have that right. You absolutely do. So there are like apples and oranges a little bit, because you still, like, as a patient, as a client, you have the right to choose whether or not you are going to utilize someone's services. So just the way that you would say, hey, this like real estate agent is not showing me good houses, like they're not listening to what I'm saying. Like, I don't want to live in that neighborhood. I've told them 5 times I don't want to live in, I want to live in this neighborhood, or this does not reflect my price rate. Like, you're going to find a new realtor. And you have the same right to do that with medical providers.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. And like you said, like, it's not, you don't want to look at it like, oh, I'm going to wait until I find that person who, like, I'm shopping around to find that person who's going to tell me exactly what I want to hear, that, weight loss is, just a diet plan away or whatever, again, that they're saying. So.
Right. And it's like, it's not going around to doctors looking for the one who's going to prescribe you the pain pills that you want. It's different than that, but it is, I mean, regardless, at the end of the day, if you are drug seeking or diet seeking or looking for true recovery from eating disorder or whatever, you still are entitled to make your own decisions about your care.
100%.
So know that, and know that you have a lot more power than you feel like you have. It is very challenging. I personally, like, I try, because I know that it's hard. When I go into a doctor's office and they want to weigh me, I do one of 2 things. And I've had mixed feedback. I'll either get on backwards just automatically and see how they handle that. Like on the scale, just hop on backwards. Or the last time I went, I think was the second time I ever said, like, hey, actually, can we just not do the weight? I don't really want to be weight. And whoever was like, in both cases, the person who was like the nurse or whoever was kind of like doing my little intake was like, oh, okay, like kind of like, okay, like uncomfortable. And this, like, no one's done this before, essentially. Do you know what your most recent weight was? Which is, I think, a little annoying, because I'm like, the whole point is I don't want to talk about weight.
Yeah.
But in both situations, I just like in that moment, like it is uncomfortable. Like
Mhm.
it was strange for me, who feels like I can get on top of my soapbox and tell any and everyone that the doctor can mind their own business and don't listen to them, and it doesn't even matter, and you can like, I get nervous. And so it was like, I think it was blah blah blah. And then the last time I went, the doctor actually came in and said, hey, I need to get your weight, we got to do vitals. And I just like got up and went. Like it was uncomfortable, and I was like, this comes up in my head a lot, because I'm like, I don't like that happened. I don't like that I didn't feel like I could say no. It didn't feel good. And so just know, like, when we're saying these things, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's against the grain. It's uncomfortable. A lot of people have white coat syndrome, where you get a lot of like anxiety in a doctor's office for whatever reason. It's really hard to do. It's just important to know that you do have the right to do it.
Right. Yeah. And I think this is, again, unfortunately, why a lot of people avoid doctors' offices altogether, which again goes back to like people aren't getting, the care that they need because of these negative experiences that they've maybe had, right? Because if you have a shameful or uncomfortable experience around a doctor, it's like you don't want to go back. And I will, I'll have clients too who are like, I'm like, okay, we kind of like, we need to get in to get like labs and stuff like that. And they're like, I don't like, they just don't want to. And so they will avoid it at all costs sometimes, because there can be so much negative, again, past experience. So it's really hard. I totally get that that's, can be a really big barrier and, prevent you from wanting medical care at all.
Right.
So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that too.
But yeah, so, and like, I just changed, and I won't go back to that doctor. Like, I won't. I went to someone else in the practice. But it's also frustrating, because it's like, they're also not getting that like feedback. She did say, like, when we went, she was like, you don't have to look, you can step on backwards. Like, it wasn't like she was like, you need to see your weight and you need to like look at it and face it.
Yeah.
but it was still like, I was like, as a human being, being like, I have the autonomy to say no. And she was like, no, you don't.
Right. That's hard.
I was like, I don't know what to do now. This is as far as my whatever I've told anyone else. Like,
Right.
like, okay. So so I can't promise it's going to be this positive, awesome experience. And I can't promise that taking the sheet in is going to mean that they don't ask you why or bring it up or talk about whatever, unfortunately. But you do have the right to then maybe find a doctor you do feel will listen, and that you do feel respected by, and who does respect your autonomy.
Yeah. Yep.
So then shifting to her section in the book on self-care, not self-control, because Demi had said, like, I really like this too. And so, yeah, self-care, not self-control. And that's one of the huge, I think, like, the control issue. And as everyone knows, like, that is wrapped up in like eating disorders. Control is a huge issue, and that fear of losing control and that desire to have control. And the problem is, the more control you try to exert over food, the less control you ultimately end up having, which is that like restrict for control, binge because you lose it. Any thoughts, Demi, before I read through these?
Yeah, no, I love the way that is said, because it's, one, we're like identifying again, like that the behavior of like, this is me trying to control, right? This is me trying to control my weight, my body, like, and it's to go like, oh, okay, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't even sound healthy when we think about it like that. But self-care, right? It's like, that's like compassionate and kind, and like saying, I care about myself, and I'm going to do things and actions and behaviors that promote and, show that care towards myself. And that doesn't, as you can see, like on the list that we're about to read, that includes so much stuff. And so I just love that perspective shift for, when we think about it like that.
So some of the like examples of what self-care might look like in lieu of self-control: making food choices that care for your mental health, honoring desire, satisfaction, spontaneity, and flexibility, as well as your physical health, pursuing joy and pleasure in food rather than deprivation and restriction, caring for your body by meeting its need for food, enough food overall, and a wide variety of foods that bring you both energy and happiness. And that definitely includes dessert, by the way, she says. Grabbing a bite or a drink with friends after work without worrying about what you ate earlier that day. serving yourself enough to truly satisfy your hunger, which might mean going back for seconds, packing snacks when you know you're going to be out for a while, and having, say, hot chocolate on a cold day because it's comforting, or watermelon on a hot day because it's refreshing. Mm-hmm. And I think a challenge of intuitive and part of learning intuitive eating is identifying the difference between, it's called self-care, and like enabling yourself. Because I think that the thing is, like, the intention is the important part, the behavior isn't. Like going out for drinks with your friends for the 5th day in a row, like, I mean, everyone's version, first of all, I don't get to decide for anyone what self-care looks like necessarily. And like that, it doesn't mean that this all the time is self-care. The idea is that like you are making choices that honor like your health, your mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, whatever health, that it's not limited by this idea that you need to control. Right. Just to clarify. And I know that that's a really challenging part, and we tend to swing from this like, okay, all these things are off limits, these foods are bad, I need to like have control, to like all foods fit, you can have whatever you want, eat whatever you want whenever you want, no such thing as good or bad. And it's very normal, and we've discussed this, to have that kind of swing. I think this was the last chapter, to like doing a little bit of like overeating. Like that is a normal response to restriction is overdoing things. Yep. So self-care, I think, falls into that. Like, where is that middle ground? Like, where is being able to honor the things I value, like say my health, and also be able to like enjoy my life and have like not just physical health, but also emotional health. There is this middle area. So I just wanted to clarify that when we say like all foods fit, eat whatever you want, I think a lot of people hear that as go get fat.
Yeah.
Go binge. And it's like, that's not what intuitive eating is. Intuitive eating is also gentle nutrition and movement and all of these other things. It isn't just all foods fit, eat whenever you want.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have clients in that, like, this pendulum has swung, and they're like, they can be fear in that, like panic, like, why am I, why do I feel the need to, I feel like I'm overeating, or I feel like I'm like only wanting these foods. And it's like, yeah, that makes sense, right? Because you were so deprived. That's not the goal, that again, we just live there and then it never again regulates or gets to that, finding that balance. But it takes some work and some time and trust, which is again hard to do when you're like, see, I can't do it. Like it's, it's happening. But talking about that, and again, finding that it's 100% a process. It doesn't just happen.
And I'm gonna, like, for the sake of, I think something probably a lot of people struggle with, and that doesn't get talked enough about, probably, I'm gonna read this section and I want to talk about it. And because I'm gonna read it. Okay. Self-care, not self-control, likewise means letting your weight settle where it may. As my fellow HAES dietitian, Dana Sturdivant succinctly puts it, it's not possible to heal our relationship with food and body while trying to control the size and shape of our body. In other words, you have to let that shit go if you want to stop feeling unhinged around food. Mm-hmm. And I don't disagree with that. And I think when my clients are being honest with me, they're also saying, like, you are asking me to do the absolute hardest part in order to get all of these potential, maybe other things that I might get to, which is to essentially be like, all right, my body is where it is. And so I just wanted to kind of like take a second to talk about that, because it is really hard. And as someone in like what they call like a straight sized body, like I don't deal with, like, I have thin privilege. Yeah. And so I think it's unfair for someone who does to be like, just accept where you are. It's cool. We're going to work on all these other things. And then you're not even going to care about that anymore. And I don't think that's fair. I think I agreed with a client who brought that up to me lately, is I don't think that's fair. And I don't think that it is talked about quite enough, because yes, it is, I think, part of the process. I think being able to accept where you are right now, it doesn't mean I accept where I am and nothing will ever change and whatever that looks like. But it does mean, like, you have to accept where you are today.
Mhm.
Like if that is maybe a starting point, like of, I can't lose 20 pounds today. If this is where you kind of are in your recovery process, I can't lose 20 pounds today. What can I do today to work on being healthy, having a good relationship with food, whatever that's going to look like for you in a given day. But so many people do get wrapped up in that, like, I need to change it, I need to change it, I need to change it. And it sabotages everything else. And so that's kind of what we're talking about here. This, you letting it go to an extent, but it is really hard to do. And I just wanted to, like, I don't think there's enough in here, and maybe it's coming, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's like radical self-love is kind of this like opposite part. And that is near impossible for a lot of people I work with.
100%. Yeah.
And so she goes on to talk about, you know, like body respect, body acceptance, body liberation. And all of those are awesome. And it is so freeing. And for a lot of people, there is no concept for right now anyway, for being able to get to that place. And so I think saying like, you just need to accept your body and we'll work on all these other things is, it's like, whoa. What do you mean I have to accept my, like, my body is the problem? And so I just wanted to kind of like create some space to have feelings about that, because it's not that easy. And it's not fair to say like, this can't bother you.
Right. Oh, 100%. Yeah. I'm so glad you said that, because that's, gosh, so just true. It's like, there is so much, and why we continue to talk about, again, the process of it and the benefit of doing this with someone, right? Like having a dietitian, having a therapist, you have to process just all of this stuff that's around that. There is never an expectation or, you know, just to be like, okay, like now that we know this, like just give it up and move on and, you know, start doing these things. It's like, no, there's so much, you know, going to be so much pushback on that, just from the belief systems that we've had for so long. It takes so long to just deconstruct that and to work through that and to, you know, become accepting, to even, like you're saying, even eventually get to the point where maybe it's love or like, or, you know, there's so much more in between than just, yeah, being to this point of, you know, body liberation or body love or, you know, self-acceptance and stuff. So
Yep. And I think the challenge, and probably, and again, maybe she's mentioned it and I forgot, or it's coming later, but I think part of it as a dietitian anyway, and Christy Harrison is a dietitian, I think it's challenging because it's kind of outside of our scope. I can't do anything for you today to help you feel better about that.
yeah.
And so it's, you know, if you're feeling like that part's being neglected, maybe it is. And I don't know that the dietitian is someone who can really help you with that, because that's a big thing. Like feeling like you're living in a vessel that you hate. I don't know how, I mean, baby steps and little ways around it, like it's just kind of outside of my scope. And so saying like, okay, we've got to like put that on the back burner for now, we can come back to it. And also in the meantime, you're going to work with a therapist, probably we can work on all these other things, but like that is such a big thing. And there's not a whole lot like concrete stuff, because I can't, if your weight is what you perceive right now to be the problem, I can't change your weight. I can't, in good conscience, with any evidence-based anything, change your weight for you or give you recommendations to change your weight. And so being accepting of where you are is something that is necessary, and that's a really hard thing to do. And then, so what, as far as a starting point, and she talks about all the kind of different versions of these, I think the starting point is body appreciation and appreciation for what your body is able to do. And I think that's a very appropriate starting point. And she talks about it, and I really resonated with me as well. Like, it doesn't mean having good body image isn't waking up every day and being like, damn, I look good, I'm like the best thing ever, and I love every single thing about my body. Good body image it doesn't affect whether or not you nourish yourself that day. It doesn't occupy your mind the whole day. Like, you are not, the sum of your worth is not based on your body. So there are days I wake up and I don't like things about my body, and I don't feel comfortable in my body. I don't know how you really could be a woman in this world and feel that every single day. Like, if there's someone out there who does, show me your ways. But like, body acceptance is like, all right, first I get mad. I'm like, I'm so pissed that someone made me feel like there's something wrong with my body, because I know that this is a cultural phenomenon. Like, I know that the world did this to me, that there isn't something wrong with my body. And then I say, my body's amazing. Like, the fact that like I am like breathing and like converting oxygen into CO2, and that my cells are like taking glucose and turning it into pyruvate and going through the Krebs cycle, all without me doing anything, and creating energy that I can do, and being able to like walk down the street and do all of it and live a life, like that appreciation can go a long way. And that's kind of what I would recommend as like a starting point. Like,
yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So anyway, if you can't tell, this is my favorite chapter. Is my favorite. So I think if you read nothing else, I think this is a helpful one to read. I really just cannot say enough good things about this book. I think she's taken all of like the kind of, foundation that like Lindo Bacon and everyone else has kind of started in this like body, neutral movement, anti-diet movement, and like kind of brought everything into modern day. I love that she, talks about like different bodies, and she talks about like different like gender and sexuality and all of this, and how like this isn't just health. This is also rooted in like the culture we live in and the politics that we're subjected to. So if you haven't started reading it yet and you're just now tuning in, highly recommend Anti-Diet. I think it's like the best thing out there right now that I know of anyway.
Yeah. And I think we just have one more chapter.
One more?
I think so.
Yeah.
Chapter 11, The Power of Community. So we will do that in a couple weeks. So get your guys this book if you haven't already. Finish it off strong with us, and we will come back.
We're reading at a snail's pace, as we have been. So awesome. All right. Well, I love doing this with you, Demi. So thanks for joining. Yeah. And we will see you all next week. I want to say that maybe Christina's doing something about gardening.
Yeah, I think it's Christina. So I have to touch base with her on that.
So yeah, we'll see you next week.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.